1. So it all started with a small get-together with a high school house party. One of my closest friends had their parents gone for the weekend and decided to throw a kickback with about a solid 10 to 25 people. It was towards the end of the day when I arrived. We had a circle of friends all gathered sitting in the living room, as if we were performing some drunk ritual, passing a bottle of platinum between the 8 of us that took shots out of this cheap-ass bottle. 20 minutes pass and the first group of kids show up. About 3 girls show up with a fuck ton of weed. Because it wasn't a brilliant idea to hotbox the house as a whole, my friend P, who's hosting the kickback, tells everyone to keep it contained downstairs. The sum of us all gather ourselves and head downstairs to the bathroom, where we sit and hotbox the room until it becomes indistinguishable to a sauna. About a half hour has passed and I decide I need some literal fresh air, so I go upstairs to find that about another 15 people show up. Nothing too bad, just found it interesting that I don't know these kids and neither does P. They came with some hallucinogens, so it was all good by his standards. Another half hour passes, as I exchange going between the folk smells sauna and the drinking going upstairs, and another group of people show up. This time it's roughly 25 more. P is low-key stressing out at this point, but we were all way off the shits to really care. The party keeps blasting, more people start showing up, and the house keeps getting louder and louder. It's about 3 hours in and it's packed. At least close to 100 kids, if not then about 150. It's just becoming a royal mess. People rolling on floors doing hard drugs, smoke billowing out of the bathroom at this point. People were so blazed they were eating straight up granola out of a bag. It was whack. So this is where it all started falling apart. This one chick, call her S, decides to show up to the house. No one really cares that much, except she fucked everything up. It was about 9 o'clock at this point and she's wasted. I'm talking like spaghetti legs rolling on the floor wasted. She gets so trashed, she decides to call her mum to pick her up. And this is the fuck up. So her mum shows up to pick her up and doesn't realize her daughter attended a party where there was hard drugs and alcohol, and her daughter realized how stupid she was for calling her. So instead of going to her mom, she hides in a closet away from the mother she called to get her. The mom is so pissed off, she decided to call the cops. No one at this point gives a fuck because everyone is lost out of their minds, and the house is hustling. About 15 minutes later, all fucking hell breaks loose. P looked out the window to see 2 cop car lights going off, and because no one could see, hear or care, he cuts off the music in front of the close to 150 people and screams these exact words, "Guys, the cops are here!" And, oh my god, I have never seen such a clusterfuck of under-influenced people scrambling for their lives in my fucking existence. These 150 people were flying around snatching all of their things and bailing out windows and the back door. People are stamping on people, passed out on the floor, stealing money and other pieces and drugs. This was a fucking apocalypse. I can't even describe the extent of the disaster that was happening. All I could think about doing was dipping out the back with everyone, where you can see people trying to hop fences, run through people's yards. It was a bloody mess. I'm about to hop my first fence away from the house when I realize I forgot my backpack and skateboard. Cross-faded off my balls, I charge back into the house to grab my belongings. When I see my friend P and 2 others scrambling to throw all the empty alcohol bottles and pieces in obscure places so the cops would be less conspicuous, as they were already knocking on the door to the house lined with the smell of pot. I ran into the room, grabbed my bag and skateboard, and then hurled out back. When I get back outside, it was dead silent. Everyone was gone, except for one person. This kid was high off his ass. He was so blazed that he forgot his shoes when he booked it out the back door. I found him and yelled his name, to when he turned around to meet my voice and say, "Holy shit, dude, we gotta get the fuck out of here." To which I couldn't agree more. Him and I bailed through the neighbours' yards and over fences as we see tons of people all across the neighbourhood getting pulled over by the masses from cops, trying to round up all the drunk and high kids running to who knows where. When we finally get out of the neighbourhood, we look back to find a cop turned on the road we just were on. Paranoid as fuck, this random guy and I ran into a Domino's to hide from the cops while he called his mum to pick us up. Which, of course, was met over the phone with loud screaming and yelling for getting high off our shits as we were running from the cops. As we waited for his fueling mum, the people working there reluctantly saw the blood-red eyes we had, strained with being so belligerently high and wasted. They spoke to us saying, "You guys look really hungry. You guys want a brownie pizza?" To which my own self snatched up that offering and munched down on this brownie pizza while we wait for our ride. 5 minutes in, the kid's mum shows up, and we book it into her car. Turns out she doesn't have her license as it expired. The best part is a cop started driving in her direction. She was so freaked out she started blasting her son. Holy fuck, I've never seen a woman so mad. She's yelling as she's booking it, trying to avoid this cop. Her son is crying in the passenger seat, and we're going 50 in a residential zone. I'm sitting in the back with this free brownie pizza trying to figure out what the fuck happened. 10 minutes later, we arrive at their house. Him and his mum storm inside, and I was so paranoid that she was pissed at me that I decided to stay outside with my cookie pizza. After another 10 minutes of walking through the woods trying to get back home, I decided it was way too far and I needed to sleep. I called it quits and just slept in this random-ass spot in the woods with nothing but a free pizza, a backpack with some clothes I put on, and a penny board I was way too cross-faded to ride. Woke up the next morning half clueless as to how the fuck I managed to survive without getting caught by the cops, but nonetheless managed to end up in the woods with a pizza box as a blanket and a backpack as a pillow. 2. This was in the spring going into summer months. My cousin and I shared a 2-bedroom apartment on the 2nd floor. This is a private 4-unit building, probably built in the early 90s or so. It wasn't fancy, but it was nice for us. Occasionally we'd hear these little scratching sounds in the attic, which was inaccessible. Never really thinking too much of it, we never had an issue with pests of any kind. So we wrote it off as maybe a bird or a chipmunk. Again, it's not like we'd hear it all the time, and only if it was quiet. It progressively got worse, but now we knew where the sound was coming from. You could hear it coming from one spot in his bedroom, the corner. Again, being young and naive and not really caring, because it really wasn't a bother, we ignored it. Maybe once debating whether or not to tell the landlord. We didn't want to be those people. After all, it really was a very gentle sound. Maybe it's the building because it's old. I don't know. On a warm Tuesday morning, we both get up and head off to work. He closes his bedroom door because I recently got a puppy, and he didn't want him to wreak havoc in his room. So now it's about 3:30 p.m., and we both arrive home, surprisingly, at about the same time, to look up at a window that is covered in wasps. Clearly on the inside. Holy fuck, my dog! The dog was fine. He had his door shut, and as having carpet, it was a perfect seal. No access out of the room for the angry mob of wasps. Turns out this nest was probably years in the making, because it weighed enough to eventually come crashing through the sheetrock while we were at work, exploding on his bed and letting out thousands, and I mean thousands, of miniature raging serial killers. I'm not kidding when I say thousands. You could hear the buzzing when we went into the apartment from the foyer. Thank Jesus the heat duct was closed for whatever reason. Maybe luck, who knows. Don't ignore sounds coming from your attic, albeit how small they are. Imagine if he was asleep, and this happened in the middle of the night. Edit, we called our landlord and they sent exterminators over to bomb. It was a mess in the room. They also sealed the hole with new sheetrock. 3. This was around 6 years ago when I was 22-ish. I had lost a good job about 3 months beforehand, and had just had a job offer extended. I was to start orientation on Monday. This story takes place on Saturday. My best friend lived with his girlfriend, and their roommates, another couple the same age. So my friend invited me over to his place one evening to hang out. Nothing really planned. When I get there, I notice an unopened bottle of cherry vodka. I used to be nuts around vodka, pretty much the only liquor I could stand to drink. No one else was really interested in drinking it, so I started doing something extremely dangerous, taking swigs right out of the bottle. I'm trying to be careful, but the problem with drinking this way is that it's damn near impossible to gauge how much you've had until it's too late. My friend's roommates end up having another friend over, so there's 6 of us now. We're discussing all sorts of stuff, one of the topics of conversation being fighting. This will be important later in this story. At some point in the night, I notice that the entire bottle of vodka is empty. At which point my friend, I'll call him Jay, grabs a bottle of rum. Typically I don't like rum, but I'm on a roll, so what the hell. The girls are just chilling, but us 4 guys start taking shots and chasing with beer. After my 7th or 8th shot, I notice that the rum tastes like water. Ordinarily, I have some sort of cringe or gag reflex when taking shots, but now they're going down as if they're just water. That should have been the biggest red flag on earth to stop right now. But of course, I'm drunk as a skunk, so my judgment is fucked. Fast forward to around 6 a.m. the next morning. I wake up and immediately notice several very disconcerting things. First off, I'm sleeping on Jay's couch, wearing a pair of shorts that don't belong to me, and not even wearing them correctly. Seriously, I had tried to put both my legs through just one leg of the shorts. I also notice a sort of uncomfortable numbness around my face, and the front of my shirt has quite a bit of dried blood on it. It turns out I woke up because my friend was making some noise while getting ready for work. As he passes me on the way out of the place, he sees me conscious and says, "Hey, don't forget to clean up before you leave." A feeling of dread comes over me, but I'm still a little, or a lot, drunk and exhausted, so I fall right back to sleep. I wake up again around 2 p.m. Jay is already home from work and upstairs. He lived in the upstairs portion with his girlfriend, and his roommates lived on the first floor. I stumble up the stairs where he's sitting there in front of his computer. He greets me in a rather subdued manner. I say, "Jay, what happened last night?" Now, if you've never blacked out before, it'll be hard to understand this, but just try to imagine. You continue to operate on autopilot, walking, talking, etc., etc., but with no, absolutely fucking none, inhibition, and furthermore, while you may seem like you're conscious, you aren't. Not at all. I blacked out only twice in my life, both in my early 20s, and now, even 6 to 8 years later, I don't remember a fucking detail. Not one. So my buddy begins to tell me a horrifying story. We had all apparently finished the bottle of rum, and were all quite drunk, especially me, who had finished my own bottle of vodka besides. At some point, I followed Jay and his roommate out front to smoke a cig. At which point I started trying to get the roommate, we'll call him S from here on out, to fight me. Apparently our earlier topics of conversation had stuck in my mind. S, being the really good guy he is, refuses, but me, being the belligerently drunk jackass I am, will hear none of it. After many unsuccessful attempts to get him to fight me, I finally decide the best way to get him to fight me is to walk up behind him and punch him right in the back of his head. Hard. He proceeds to throw me on the ground and turn my face into ground beef. The next morning my lips were split in several places, and so swollen that it looked like I'd sucked 1,000 cocks in a row. I also had a black eye and both cheeks were bruised to hell and back. Well, I was apparently bleeding pretty badly, so they carried me back inside where the girls proceeded to absolutely freak out, and they all started to discuss whether I needed an ambulance. At some point during this conversation, I lunged at S again. Thank God everyone held me back. Otherwise he would have fucked me up. Again. A few more of these unsuccessful lunges, then I calmed down for a while. So a bit later I decide I really need to take a piss. And what better place than in the refrigerator? Thankfully, Jay's girlfriend catches me standing in front of the fridge, with the door open and my junk hanging out, and before I let loose, hurries me over to the kitchen sink. I'm way too drunk to climb stairs, and apparently someone else was in the downstairs bathroom. Well, my aim wasn't so great, so I ended up pissing all over the kitchen countertops and cabinets. Then I proceeded to walk around with it hanging out. Jay's girlfriend took mercy on me and zipped me up. At this point, I passed out for a couple hours, then woke up again around 2 in the morning, with another hateful urge to piss. This time I apparently decided I'd be okay to climb the stairs and use the bathroom. Success! Well, almost. I sort of forgot to lift the lid, so I ended up pissing all over the outside of the toilet. I also apparently took my shorts off, then went into Jay's bedroom, woke him up, and asked him for a pair of shorts, which is how I ended up in shorts that didn't belong to me. I also lost my wallet that night, which had like $40 cash and my license in it. When I went in for orientation on Monday, I still had a headache. Everyone stared. Absolutely everyone. My boss, my new co-workers, the customers. I looked like I'd tried to fight a fucking gorilla. My story was that I had been mugged while coming out of the mall, and to my surprise that worked. Everyone believed it, and took undeserved pity on me. It took about a month and a half before I looked mostly normal again, although I still have a couple of small scars on my face. I tried to be a man about it. I apologized, cleaned up, all that. Furthermore, somewhere I found the guts to hang out with Jay again. We did hang out a few more times, but, well, it was never the same. I imagine this must be what it's like when someone knows you've murdered someone. They know the deed has been done, and it's always at the back of their minds. I completely lost touch with Jay, and all my other friends from those years. I haven't seen any of them in at least 4 years, and, God willing, I never will. 4. I live in Maine, and as such, the snow is finally starting to melt. In the winter, we put orange fiberglass stakes along our driveway, so that the plows can see where the edges are through the snow. I was picking these up on a fine 60-degree day, at about 6:30 p.m., when I saw something out of the corner of my eye run behind a tree. I figured this may be a chipmunk, but was curious, so I gave one of the stakes a whack into the remaining snow to get him to move so I could give him a look. Well, little did I realize fiberglass stakes have a tendency to splinter. When I picked my hand up from the stake came with it. I looked, and lo and behold, a splinter sticking out of the stake had gone through the pads of the ring and middle finger of my right hand, and was holding them together. The thought crossed my mind to pull it out, but I'd have to nudge it, and with it came agonizing pain, so I decided against that. I walked back to my house as quickly as the fiberglass through my fingers would allow, and gave the door a good kick. My mom came to the door and I said, "We've got a bit of a problem." As I watched the color drain from her face, she booked it to the car and I followed, 3-foot stake and all. What followed was one of the worst car rides I've ever experienced. Of course, in my mother's panic, she's driving about 30 over, and is doing everything she can to get me to the nearest assistance, which happened to be a local quick care, important detail, as quickly as physically possible. Every bump she hit, which was quite often thanks to shitty main roads at the end of winter, the damn stake sticking out of my hand got jostled around, either hitting the ceiling or floor of the car, which didn't feel particularly great. So we arrive at the quick care, and the secretary goes and gets a doctor, who goes and gets another doctor, who says we need to go to the ER without even coming out of the waiting room to look. So we make the executive decision to call an ambulance to come get me, in the hopes that they can do something about the pain. Boy, were we wrong. They cut down the length of the stake a bit at least, so it didn't hit anything after that. But that ride was way more bumpy, and I got jostled around quite a bit. At this point, the adrenaline was beginning to wear off as well, so the pain was slowly getting worse and worse. We arrive at the hospital, and it is packed. Like something you'd see in a movie. In the waiting room, there were kids screaming, a few burly men who seemed to have just gotten out of a fight, a basketball player with a broken arm, and a few dudes vomiting. Thankfully, since I had recently been impaled, as they put it, I got pretty high priority and got to skip the waiting room. They were so full there were no rooms available, so I got thrown in the hallway, under a numbered plaque on the wall. There I sat for about an hour, until a doctor came along. On my way there, one of the EMTs moving me asked how I was doing. I looked him in the eye. "Oh, you know, Mondays, man." So a doctor comes along and gives me 4 lidocaine shots in each impaled finger, which numbs him up pretty quickly. However, the doctor clearly has no clue how best to get this thing out, so he goes for backup. He comes back with another doctor who tells me, "There's no signs to this. We're just gonna have to pull this thing out." Joy, so I prepare myself and they begin to pull this thing out of my fingers. What I experienced during this was the worst pain of my life. It's indescribable. They could see I was in quite a bit of pain. I was pale, shaky as hell, and had just about passed out at this point. So they have a nurse inject me with some sort of pain medicine. I wasn't questioning it. They kept pulling, and at this point, I began to black out a little bit. My mother tells me I was screaming. But finally, what seems like eons later, about 10 minutes, this thing is completely out. I get x-rays, which come back good, wash myself off, and go on my merry way. The whole ordeal only took about 4 hours. 5. This technically happened in the wee hours of the morning of April 26th, 2015, when I was a senior in high school. It was right after the senior prom, and that in itself was honestly one of the best nights of my life. I didn't have a boyfriend at the time and instead opted going with a group of friends to hang out with. Savannah, Ashley, Holly, Brisha, Jen, and I all met at this convention center in our city that's attached to a nice hotel. We danced to cheesy but undeniably catchy pop songs, and generally had a great time from 8 p.m. to midnight, under the New York-themed decorations. But as they say, all good things must come to an end. After prom, we piled into the back of Savannah's parents' car, since Savannah had a license but not yet a car of her own, to drive then. We were exhausted and hungry, and since it was midnight, most restaurants were closed down by then. The only things really open were the local Waffle House and an IHOP. We settled on the latter and less sketchier. Since Savannah's family has always been and still is very chill, her parents dropped us off at the restaurant and went to do their own thing for a bit before they picked us up again to go to Savannah's house for a sleepover. Other seniors from the prom were either paying or eating when we arrived. We chose a table towards the back, ordered our food and drinks, and everything was perfectly normal. At first. I was eating some sort of white chocolate raspberry pancakes, I believe, coupled with the Italian restaurant we ate at prior to prom, and whatever they served that night. I can't believe the untimely urge didn't hit sooner. I had to poop. I excused myself and headed straight for the women's restroom on the other side. There I quickly began to realize my main problem. My dress. It was a purple strapless with a sweetheart neckline and a rather long skirt. Having to bunch up all the fabric just to keep it poo-free would be a headache, if not a challenge. Before I could do the dirty deed, the bathroom door opened and a woman sat in the stall next to me. Oh God. I don't know if it was my yet-to-be-diagnosed social anxiety or general embarrassment, but for the longest time I absolutely could not use a public restroom with other people in it. I've gotten over it now, but 2 years ago the idea was haunting, to say the least. Now I had to awkwardly wait out this stranger to finish, so I could do my own thing. I held in the movement as best I could, but my intestines would not hear it. The next thing I knew, bits of poo seemed to practically explode out of my anus in a loud, reverberating fart like a round of bullets firing out of a machine gun. I panicked so much so that I ended up gasping out loud without thinking. Great. Not only does this woman know that I am performing the taboo of a public poo, a horrendous taboo, right next to her, but now she is no doubt weirded out further by my sudden, nearly ecstatic outburst of what she might have assumed was that of relief. The bathroom returns to a dead silence, more excruciating than before. I dare not make a peep. I've already lost all hope in myself carrying out the rest of the night like a normal human being. How many social norms have I violated already? I felt like dying right there in that toilet. At least I'd be prepared to go. The woman eventually finishes her own business, washes her hands, and leaves the restroom. Now I can clean up my act, no pun intended, in peace. I reach down, tear off some toilet paper, only to find there was none. Had I done something to deserve this trifecta of inconvenience? I felt like all a horrible nightmare for a brief moment, before I decided to buckle down and think of something. The girls were probably worrying about me. No way I would have asked that woman for some if she had still been there. There were no spare rolls on top of the toilet. I contemplated walking into another stall to borrow some TP, but that would require me either walking with my panties down and my skirts around my waist, or padding between stalls with an ugly set of skid marks. Neither option was appealing. Then I noticed it, thank God in heaven. There were paper toilet seat covers, at my literal and figurative disposal. Not quite as soft as regular toilet paper, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And guess what? Just as I was finishing up, one of the girls, Jen, did come to check on me, to see if I was okay. As sweet as that is, I was too embarrassed to give the truth. I might have said something about having complications, or no toilet paper, one of the two. I'm not sure which, but I never told any of the girls what really happened. We were eating, for God's sake. Why would I? I get a good laugh out of this story now that I think of it, as do my parents. I'm thankful that it didn't end as badly as it very well could have. But considering my younger, anxious mindset, it was probably worse in my head than it was. Maybe, just maybe, I'll have the courage to tell my friends about it now that we're in our sophomore years of college. Who knows? Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Embarrassing Stories, episode 36. Very sorry for keeping you guys waiting so long for one of these. Just was too hard to put together. But the good news is, we've got this week's, and I think I've got enough stories for next week's with subscriber stories alone. So we've at least got another one guaranteed next week, and I'll certainly be sending out messages, and continue looking through the archives as well, to try and get as many stories as I can. I would of course like to say thanks very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories, and to those who sent stories into me also. Thanks very much everyone. Well, let's see, this is Saturday this goes up, isn't it? Well, I hope you're all having a nice weekend. What I've got planned for this weekend is performing some minor reconstructive surgery on a guitar. I've got my acoustic guitar there. It's a K Hummingbird. If anyone's heard of a Gibson Hummingbird, it's basically a copy of that made about 30 odd years ago. And it's actually a very good guitar. It was my father's, and it's it's held up quite well over the years, apart from the day my father bought the guitar. You see, the thing is, the day he went to buy it, he'd been out with a friend of his for quite a while. We won't say much about that friend, not a very nice person. But he'd been out with this friend of his, went out to buy the guitar, and they decided to go drinking afterwards. And he'd also bought some fish as well, some like little fish, so they were still in the bag. And he got home very late, and a tad inebriated. And so my mother, being the calm, rational person she was in her younger days, took my father's wonderful, beautiful, shiny new guitar and took a swing at him with it. Fortunately, for all concerned, she missed, but she did ding the guitar a little bit on the wall or whatever it was she hit it with. So that very nice guitar has had a bit of a dent in one corner. It's not actually too bad considering, but it's had that damage with it for as long as I remember that guitar existing. It's had that damage in it, and well, my father passed away many years ago, and I kind of inherited that guitar from him. Although technically, I inherited it a number of years before he passed away, because there's a guitar in the house. You get to a certain age as a teenager, especially if you're a boy, and you start to take an interest, and so I asked my father if I could borrow it every now and again, and he's like, yeah, that's fine. And one day I'd borrowed it, and I said, do you want it back now? I'm done with it. He said, no, just you hold on to it. So he kind of bequeathed it to me years before he passed away, and it's very important to me. So that's why this weekend, long-winded way of getting to the point, this weekend I'm going to be replacing the nut and the saddle on it, because they're both kind of worn down just from years of use. So I'll get that, and I'll get a new set of strings, and whenever the lemon oil arrives for the fretboard, I'll give it a little bit of a wipe over with that as well. My little niece has actually developed an interest in guitar recently. I was round at my sister's house yesterday, getting my hair cut, because my sister tends to cut what little hair I have left. And she got the guitar, and it's actually quite a good one for a starter. And I tuned that up for her yesterday, and so she's good to go with her guitar as well. Anyway, I think I'm chewing your ear off, so I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to head off and let you good folks get about your weekends. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.